Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the TGIF Business Networking Hangout. I'm your host, Maylani MacDonald, Brand Identity and Outreach Strategy Consultant. Today we've got a great show. Now, about a month ago, I had my special guest, Abbie Joseph-Harrington, on TGIF because she had a summit that she was producing. It was called the Perfect Close Summit, and it is a telesummit, meaning she interviewed 25 experts in the field of sales and how to close the sales on the topic of how to close the sale. That's why it was called the Perfect Close Summit. And then she made those interviews available to the people who signed up at the summit, who registered to be a participant and a listener. And she made those interviews available over the course of a week, 3 a day, and everybody got to listen in to those interviews. So Abbie came on last month to talk about the process of what it was like to plan such a big event, something that you're interviewing 25 people for. You have technology to deal with, you have a lot of promotion to deal with, you have all kinds of details and logistics and marketing challenges. And it was just, I thought, a really interesting topic to hear. Plus, she asked me to be one of the people that she could interview, so of course I was. And that was a lot of fun to be on the other side of the seat than the host seat. I got to be the guest. But I thought it would be really fun to have Abbie come back on and talk about the after event, because those interviews were made available from July 7th to July 14th. So now it's after the summit. And Abbie's come back again to share with us the after the summit debriefing and review. We're going to hear about a little more about some of the trials and tribulations of planning that summit, but what the results were after it was done. Was it worth it? What did she go through? Is she willing to do it again? And what would be done differently next time? And what were the rewards that she received for it? As per usual, we're going to let the Peanut Gallery guests introduce themselves first. Joining us today is John Jurkiewicz. Hi, John. He also was one of the guests interviewed at the Telesummit. So tell us a little bit about yourself, John.
John Jurkiewicz, career development coach, consultant, and small business consultant. Just glad to be here this morning. I'm just kind of hanging out and chilling, kind of interested in what Abbie has to say because I participated in the summit too, and I'll share a little bit of what I think I got out of it a little later on, but just kind of hanging out and interested in what she has to say.
Awesome. Thanks, John. And I'll share what I got out of it as well. I think, you know, the benefit was for the participants who were interviewed as well as for Abbie, the host. Abbie, how are you?
Hi.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in sales before we get started, and what made you think of this Telesummit, and what made you decide you wanted to put on an event that was all about helping people close the sale?
So my background is in sales. I've spent 35 years as a professional salesperson. For about 25 or so years, I was in the car business. I was a finance manager and finance director, and even though they give us that fancy title of finance manager, you're really a glorified salesperson. Then I left the car business. I was in the insurance business for a while. I owned some Allstate agencies, and most recently in the timeshare industry. And all three of those are very hardcore, relatively high pressure sales situations. And that's not me, that's not my style, that's not who I am and what I'm comfortable with. So a long, long time ago, when I was a young woman and just getting started in sales, I had to figure out a way to sell in those high pressure environments, kind of against the grain. And I developed a system of sales by building rapport, making it based on the sale, based on trust, and really selling from my heart. And I was extremely successful in every area that I worked in, car business, insurance, and timeshare. And really, as I say, going against the grain. So now what I'm trying to do is take those lessons that I learned to help small business people and entrepreneurs, because no matter what your business, no matter what your level of expertise, you still have to be able to sell. You don't have a business if you can't sell. And there's so much negativity, there's so much fear surrounding sales. And because I was able to break through that myself and really learn to have fun and make it a win-win proposition, and really feel that I'm serving my customer, my client, my prospect, that I felt there was something out that I had that I could bring and share with the world. So that's why my focus is on sales and sales coaching. As far as the Telesummit goes, I'm actually in a year-round or year-long coaching program where I am paying a coach, and her whole program, her philosophy is that you can build your own business through telesummits. So I love the idea of the Telesummit because it's online, and because I work a full-time job, I don't have the time to be out there networking in person, so I needed a virtual way to build a business. And the information I had about her program really made me believe that there was a way I could build a business virtually. And so I started down this path to put on my first Telesummit. And yes, it was quite an adventure, let's say.
Well,
a learning opportunity.
That's really interesting. And I love what you say about those environments being high-pressure environments, and you were able to successfully navigate your way through them, but you didn't have to conform to that kind of that high-pressure sales persona kind of person. You were able to do it on your own terms, which I think is really wonderful. And I think that removes a lot of the blocks that people have about selling, because we all have these kind of preconceived notions of that high-pressure sales guy that, drives us a little crazy and drives us away, and we don't want to be that person. But if we can learn to make the sale without being that person in a way that's comfortable for us and helps us retain our integrity, I think, that makes a big difference. And, in fact, this is something that one of the things that I learned from John, because as John said, he's a sales coach, and he's helped me a whole lot because I had all these inner blocks against the selling myself, and he really helped me change that mindset and do just exactly what you were talking about.
Well, the classic, what do I want to say, stereotypical terrible salesperson that nobody wants to be is the used car salesperson. Right. And I spent more than 25 years in that environment, and I do have to say that those guys are wonderful. My best friends are in the car business, so they really aren't what we all picture, and yet that is the stereotype that we all picture, and none of us want to be that person, at least, and none of us want to be perceived as being that person. We don't want to be pushy. We don't want to be salesy. We don't want to feel that we're manipulating someone, or that in order for me to succeed in getting my sale, my prospect, my customer, my client has to somehow lose.
Right.
It's not that. It's a relationship-based transaction where, because we've built this relationship, because we've built trust, because they know in the core of their being that I am there to help them, right, then it does become a win-win, and then there is no fear around it.
Right. And I just want to say to all the used car salespeople out there, sorry, because she's making. Abbie just made a great point. It's true. It's this stereotype, and that's what we use as the figure of speech. Don't be the used car salesperson. And I think that in part comes from and is propagated by movies too, and where you see the used car salesperson, and the only thing they care about, and this is the stereotype, is selling the car to the person, just selling it no matter what. And the car is a lemon a lot of times in these movies, but in the reality of it, it's more about asking the customer, what kind of car do you need? What kind of car do you want? Do you need, fancy schmancy, you can hold your pinkies up when you're driving? Or, do you need old reliable that's not going to ever break down and go into the shop 20 times a year? So it's more about matching the needs and then finding, well, this car is the one that matches your needs. And there's, I'm sure, a lot of you used car salespeople out there that do just that. So we apologize for that stereotype. But
I think the other thing that comes out of that is, yes, it's meeting the customer's needs, but it's also recognizing that everyone buys really based on emotion. There's logic involved in the decision making, but it's not about the car. If you take that car as the example, as the stereotypical example, it's really not about the car. It's about what the car does for the person. So, if you are buying a hybrid, a lot of it, whether you're willing to admit it or not, is that you want everyone else to believe that you are environmentally aware and concerned and you're doing your part. And if you are driving a Mercedes, the top of the line Mercedes, it's because you get attention when you drive that car. So, I'm just making assumptions, but my point is, it's really not the car. It's what the car does for you.
Right.
So
the benefit
and the emotions surrounding it. So when we talk about sales, the sales process, the closing process, it's getting people to understand. It's really, when you're selling your product or your service, it's more about how is your customer going to feel once they have your product. How is your customer going to feel once they've worked through your program, your coaching program?
Right.
What is the result they're going to have in their life? And if they don't have that product or they don't have that service or they don't complete that program, are they just going to be in the same place they are now with the same pain, the same problem, the same issues?
It's really interesting that you bring that up, because when I do my brand identity consulting session with a client who is usually starting a business or in the workshop, two things that you said really stand out. You said, what is that customer going to think when they use your product or your service, and how are they going to feel? And in the course of my brand identity workshop, those are two of the questions that I asked them in the beginning. When we're talking about creating their brand identity, it's not how do you want your customers to feel, but what are your customers going to feel? Well, it's how do you want them to feel when they use your product? What do you want them to think when they use your product? Because it's what those customers think and what those customers feel. That's the basis of the messages that you're now going to craft in your promotions, because you're not going to tell them how shiny and beautiful you think it is. You're going to tell them, you're going to feel like this if you use my product.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us now, we got off on a little bit of a tangent. We started talking about selling, and that's great, because I'm sure all the people who watch this need to know how to sell. But I really want to hear a little bit about, the process of creating the Telesummit, the logistics, the pain you went through, and ultimately, was it worth it? You mentioned that you are in a year-long coaching program, and so this is sort of a kind of a turnkey thing that they were teaching you how to do and saying that this is how you can get an online business started. So tell us a little bit about what you went through, sort of a recap of that last episode when you came on.
So to start with, the first goal in setting up your Telesummit is to find your speakers. And I think that was one of the hardest pieces for me, being new to the world of online marketing and sales coaching or small business coaching, which is this new arena that I've entered into. So that was really a challenge. And so what I did, I hired a company to support me in finding those speakers and then putting on my Telesummit. That was an experience in and of itself, and it was quite an expensive experience. And I found that I did not receive the support that I had paid for. So if I went back, I would not have done that. My plan was that was going to save me a lot of time in finding people. So I ended up ending my relationship with the company that I had hired and finding the speakers on my own. And that was great because then I had to actually get out there, put myself out there and say, hey, would you like to be a part of this summit? When I didn't have an online audience already. I didn't have an online presence. And, you know, I got a lot of responses like, who are you? Why should we participate with you? And then I had to basically sell my summit and how this would benefit them. And the whole idea behind the summit is to build a list and to build a community. So I invited speakers, and they were required to promote to their own lists. And in doing so, as people opted in for my summit, they then, of course, joined my list. So I was able to grow a list. We had 568 opt-ins. So I went from 0 to 568 on my email list just through this summit. So that was fabulous. But for the speakers themselves, in promoting the summit to their own tribe, to their own followers, as they grew my list, each one of them was promoting the summit, and each of you had an opportunity to offer a free gift, and which was very gracious. People gave fantastic products to our audience, and so as those audience members opted in for the free gifts, my speakers grew their lists. So it really was a win-win proposition.
I'm sorry, I'm going to cut in for a minute because I have to comment on something that you said, and it was really interesting. You said that you had no online presence, and so you were approaching people, and they were saying, well, why should we do this? And then you had to sell the summit. Now, I'm going to be honest, I was one of those people, because when somebody asks me about something or approaches me for their thing, the first thing I do is I go and I Google them. I look them up. I'm like, okay, no Twitter, no Google, no. I'm not on Facebook, so I couldn't check Facebook. But I was like, who is this person? You know, I don't know. But you did end up selling the summit to me because it just seemed like, what could it hurt, right? There's a lot of benefit that could possibly be had, and I did get people sign up to my email list, so it was for me a benefit. And I got to be the person that was interviewed instead of the host, and that was a lot of fun. That was part of why I did it. But you did a good job of selling the summit, so that was your sales background in action there. And it was interesting, though, because I had a challenge in promoting it, because when I'm promoting it, usually when I'm promoting something, if I'm partnering with somebody else, I always put the link to that person where they can find out more about that person. And I was really having a hard time. What do I link to Abbie? You know, what do I put? But one of the ways that you overcame that challenge that I thought was really good was that you sent out your bio and some other background materials to all of us participants by email. So even though I couldn't point them to a link, for example, like a Twitter feed where you were, I could tell them, you know, Abbie's had this many years of experience in sales, and she's worked for these 5 Fortune 500 companies, and she's generated over $20 million in sales. So, you know, that right there kind of says a lot if you're promoting a summit where you're going to learn about sales. The fact that you generated how many millions of dollars in sales. So I thought that was kind of helpful right there, and it was an interesting way, and it was really interesting for me to work with someone who doesn't have an online presence per se. I found it interesting, and I actually learned a lot from that process, I think. And John, are you still with us? Your camera's not on. But if you're there, I'd like to get your feedback on that as well.
Yeah, I think one of the, and I'm going to talk in respect to benefits, Okay, I got probably about a 35% increase in my newsletter subscriptions. And boy, they all came the day after that you featured my interview. It was like I was afraid MailChimp was going to throw me off. Okay, but all of a sudden I got about a 35% increase. All very valuable. What impressed me is some of the people that listened through the free gift I gave away actually contacted me through my email, wanted to explore establishing a further relationship. So I think for both of those, I like the eclecticism of the speakers. Okay, and one of the fears I always have that if you go to a sales summit or a purchasing summit or a social media summit, you can listen to the first three speakers and then phone the rest of it in because it's pretty much the same theme. With what you did in this summit, you wanted to come back the next day because it was eclectic. There were just different things. I talked about selling yourself, okay? And while that may not be traditional in the sales mode, it's very much in the forefront in today's world. So I think, despite all the labor pains you went through giving birth, I think it turned out real well.
Thank you. Yeah, I did. I love that you like the eclectic piece of it because that was one of my goals. I think people think of sales as just like one thing. And so I tried very hard to bring in people with different perspectives, different backgrounds, and to share different pieces of it. So, Melanie, you shared, of course, Google Hangouts and how a business owner can use that in their sales process. And John, as you said, you shared how to sell yourself. And then I had a speaker on how to sell from the stage, another speaker on using Facebook advertising to market yourself and build your sales funnel, and someone else who talked about the sales funnel. And I had people who come from an entirely different background. One gal spoke on energy and how your energy determines your results. And that was something very new and different for me. One of my speakers spoke on the subject of human design, which is a form of astrology, which I had never heard of. And how if you follow there's a way that they do charts based on the time and the date of your birth, and that kind of tells you who you are, what your personality is, and maybe what form of sales or how you should work your sales. It was quite interesting. So I did try very hard to bring in those different perspectives. I brought in one gal who spoke about networking and that in-person sales process. So I'm glad you appreciated that. And we had 25 speakers, and I don't think anyone just covered what someone else had covered. So it was great.
And Abbie, do you mind sharing with us how you started with a list of 0 before this event? Is that correct, on your mailing list?
Correct.
And how big did your list get through this event?
So my list right now is 568 people. And I have to say, while that's a great result, I love that. It is not what I expected. And that's part of the lesson that I learned.
What were you expecting?
Well, we were expecting, based on the number of speakers, we were expecting at least 1,500. That was what I had forecast based on this program that I'm in and the formulas that you use. But the lesson there was about the promotion. And again, going back to the support that I initially had, there was a lot of miscommunication on what the expectation was for promotions. And so a lot of my speakers genuinely did not know what the promotional requirements were, and I thought they did know what the promotional requirements were. And so we didn't get the promotion I didn't get the promotion that I had expected. One of the lessons is that social media alone does not equal opt-ins.
Right.
Social media backing up email promotions does equal opt-ins. So I had quite a number of speakers who only promoted on social media, and I did not get opt-ins from them. But that was just, it was not their fault, it was not my fault, it was a lack of communication. So initially the requirements were there was to be one solo email, one newsletter blurb, and social media. Had that happened across the board, we would have hit our target. Because I can tell from when I set this all up with my affiliate links for each of my speakers, when I go back into Infusionsoft, every opt-in is attached to a speaker's affiliate link. So I can see exactly where the opt-ins came from, and then I can look at what they did for promotions and put the two together.
Oh, interesting. So you get a lot of really good data feedback that you can use the next time that you're going to do another summit.
Yes.
And I'm assuming you're going to do another one after.
Yes.
Okay.
The Perfect Close 2.0 is coming. I'm planning. My goal is to have it live mid-October, and of course I now know what I will do differently.
So let me ask you some questions about what you'll do differently, but let's save that for just a few minutes because we're at the halfway mark just about, and I would like to give Annie, who joined us, a chance to introduce herself. Hi, Annie. Please unmute yourself and then introduce us. I muted you, so you have to unmute yourself.
I was going to be quiet this time. I'm Annie Chalakian, owner of Silver Moon Bay, silvermoonbay.com, Patient Wear That Cares, which is designer hospital gowns and accessories like bed jackets and things like that, which provide people in convalescent situations with beautiful, comfortable, soft hospital gowns and bed jackets that are a great gift or something you can buy for yourself to make you just feel so much better.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. I'm so glad you made it today. I know how busy you've been, so it's always a pleasure to have you. I also want to say hi to Roxanne. Hi, Roxanne. She's out there, and she's leaving some messages in our event page. Come on in if you like to, Roxanne. The link is right there in the comments. Just scroll down a little bit on the event page, and if anybody else wants to come in or post a question, you can either join us in the Hangout. You'll find the link in the page in the comments, or you can post your question to the page in the comments if you don't want to be on camera, you're camera shy. So come on in and ask your questions or post them, and we'll make sure they get answered. Let's get back to a little bit about this, what you would do differently next time around based on what you learned this time around. So you got a lot of sign-ups, and part of what your challenge was your communication with the people that you were interviewing, with the other participants in the summit, and confusion about who they should contact to find out more information and what it was that they were supposed to do. So next time you do it, how are you going to reach out to the participants that you'll be interviewing differently so that there's a greater understanding of how they need to promote it and what exactly, it sounds like you have exactly, you know what it is that you want them to do. And, will there be like an orientation kind of meeting, a group meeting, sort of everybody's on the same page? What might you do differently next time?
Well, what really went wrong is that I left it up to my support people to develop the agreement that I used. And I do believe in using agreements where it's all in writing what the expectation is and what my rights are to the material, what their rights are to the material, that sort of thing. But what happened was an agreement went out initially to the majority of my speakers, and how it read was, pick which form of promotion you want to do and just mark those boxes. And I did not know that. So it was supposed to have gone out saying, here are the requirements: 1 solo email, 1 newsletter blurb, and 3 to 5 social posts within this time period. And there was a promotional period of 2 weeks prior to the summit going live. So I did not find out until that promotional period was live that I would say 90% of the agreements that went out that way. And so the speakers did what they thought they were supposed to do, and they signed the agreements and they marked which pieces of promotion they wanted to do. So I would just fix, and I have already fixed my agreement, so it says specifically what I expect, and there is no part for them to choose what they want to do. I also will increase the promotional requirements because I now believe, and my coach in my program said this to begin with, 1 solo email to your list is not enough. I also now have a better understanding of the value of the summit, and I can be so much stronger in selling it myself and being strict about what the requirements are. Where
Right.
initially I was like glad to get someone who said yes, you know, but now it's like
scarier the first time out, right?
right. So now it's like,
unsure.
you want to participate in my summit? Well, here's what you need to do, and it's going to be 2 solo emails, a newsletter blurb, and social posting.
And do you plan on by or before the Summit 2.0, do you plan on creating any social profiles for yourself to make it easier for the other participants to say, hey, check out, you know?
Absolutely. And my apologies, because I'm new to this entire game. For example, I do have a website, but it is not available. It's still under construction, but it's 2 months behind. It was supposed to have gone live the beginning of May, which would have worked out perfectly for the summit. But the summit consumed me, really consumed me, and I had to stop the work on my website while I completed the summit. So my website is now being completed, but I do have a very active presence on Facebook, and I know, Mylani, you're not on Facebook, so
Right.
that does not help you. But I also believe in, when you're working into the social media realm, getting one piece figured out and working, and then moving on to another. So my website will be complete. My Facebook is done and automated and working, and so I don't have to work on that anymore. And so now I'll move on. And I don't.
So now it's becoming a well-oiled machine. So once it starts rolling, it kind of rolls on its own and snowballs, right?
Correct. So now it's picking which is my next platform. Is it Twitter? Is it Google Plus? I don't yet know that. You'd probably like it to be Google Plus.
Well, you know, I think it just depends on your goals and your objectives and you know, what would be good for you. I think Twitter is always really good too.
Okay.
Because Twitter is such a, you know, a conversation maker. It's so easy to get kind of involved in a conversation in Twitter, and there's always conversations going on. I like Twitter. I'm more successful on Google Plus than any of the others, but I do like Twitter a whole lot too.
Okay, so I will explore that. Twitter is something so totally different for me. I don't understand it. I've tried it. I need help with it.
Well, let's talk, you know, another time.
Yes, exactly. So, but the other thing, if I may, I want to talk about real quick, because it's not just the Telesummit. There are more pieces to this, so if I can just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, because actually one of the questions I had is, now that you have your list, what are you going to do with it?
Right, because it's not just, I mean, it is about building a list, but it's about building a list that becomes your community that you can then market your services to. So next up, first of all, during the summit, each interview went live, but it only went live for the hour of that interview. Then there was a replay period of 72 hours after it had gone live. now the summit is over, and we will be announcing on Monday a new 72-hour replay period. So everyone who missed, because it was hard to catch 25 interviews, and we realized that. So Monday we'll be announcing a new 72-hour replay period. Then I will be sending a survey to everyone who opted in, asking them what are their sales issues, what are their fears, where are they looking for help, what are their struggles, what are their blocks, all of that. And then I'm building a 3-part video series that will go out through email, and there's a time frame during which you send those 3 pieces addressing the results of the survey. So depending upon what the audience says they're looking for, I'll build those 3 videos to address that. And then at the end of the 3 video series, I invite them to join me in a 90-minute webinar, again, surrounding those issues and how I'm able to help them with that, and then make the offer in the webinar to work with me and share with them the various ways that they can work with me, either through private coaching or in my group program, to work on their sales conversations, their sales conversions, their closing, all of that. So there is an end goal.
Organized follow-up system. That's great.
Yes.
Now, can people still go to the perfectclosesummit.com and register for the replays?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you register today, for example, you'll get our welcome email. And it's kind of confusing because you get the welcome email as if the summit has not occurred yet. Right. But you will get that, and then you'll get the email that says, hey, there's a 72-hour replay period. Also, I am offering in a bundle all 25 interviews, a 30-minute strategy call with me to review your sales process, and a online course, a 1-hour course that I have put together on storytelling and how storytelling is such a key piece of the sales process. And I was selling that during the summit for $37. The actual price of that bundle is $97, so I'm not sure. I have not yet decided during the replay period what it will be. But truly, as I listen back to those interviews, I would pay $37, if not $97, to have them in my library. They're fabulous. The information that was shared was fabulous.
Now, when you say you're selling the package, what does that mean? That if the person buys this package, they can download them, or they just have access all the time?
What will happen is they will be given a link to Dropbox, and there is a file there that they can download for all 25 interviews, so they own them, and they download the course, so they own it, because otherwise the interviews are not downloadable. Okay. Yeah.
Now, are you concerned at all about people sharing them then once they have them, or is that not that big a concern?
I'm not really concerned, but I don't know, technologically speaking, I don't know how to block them or to prevent that. So that wasn't. I just said, oh well, if they do, they do. But actually, if they do, I think in the end it's good for me. It just gets my name out there.
Marketing, promotion, right?
Yeah.
And that's interesting that you say that, because that's a conversation that I've had with other people on similar things, because what technologies are we using? How do we make it available to some people but not necessarily to others? And what if they share it? And ultimately, we in the discussions that I've had, it's always come out the same. Ultimately, well, if they share it, it's okay, because it ends up being more marketing. But 99% of the time they don't. That's what I found. It hasn't actually ever been a problem.
A problem, yeah. I don't foresee it.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a whole process, and then we'll start it over again.
Wow, that's really interesting. And so if you want to sign up and take advantage of all these fabulous interviews, you still can. There's going to be the replay period. Abbie, when does that replay period start, and where can people go if they want to register to receive all those interviews?
If you want to opt in, you go to theperfectclosesummit.com. All we ask for is your name, and you can just use your first name, that's fine, and an email address. And then you're immediately opted in. Now, it does immediately take you to the upsell page to the bundle, but once you've filled out the first page, you're already opted in. So whether you choose to purchase the bundle or not, you don't have to feel like you have to go past that page to be included. You're already included. And you can, if you listen to the interviews and then decide that you would like the bundle, you can always go back. So even though we say one-time only offer, you can still purchase that. So yes, so opt in for the summit. You'll immediately go into the list, and then you'll get the announcement for the replay period. At this moment, the plan is for the replays to go live on Monday. But I do have a support person who does the Infusionsoft piece of this for me, because that's a little bit more complicated than I was able to take on at the moment. And he is located in New York City. So I still have to put that email together and get it to him, and he has to put it into Infusionsoft so it goes out. So Monday may not give him enough time, so it may be Tuesday. But Monday or Tuesday, you'll get that email announcement that they're all live, and it will provide the links to all 25 interviews. And then, too, I must say that if you go to the replay page for the interviews, there are links there for the speakers' free gifts. So you haven't missed anything by not opting in earlier. You still get their free gift. You can still join our Facebook community, and there's a link there for the Facebook community. So it's all as if you were participating, back last week.
And so now, if you get a lot of new signups, a lot of new participants, a lot of really great reaction from the replay, would you consider doing a third replay? I mean, if it ends up that this is really popular and people are still wanting to come in and get more, or is the second replay it, and then if they want it, it's by the package?
Well, I had not thought of that. At this point, it's the second replay. I'm really trying to stick with the formula that my coach has outlined, and there's just the second replay. I guess I would say dependent upon demand. But yes, there's a point at which it's like, I've made it available, I've made it available, I've made it available.
Right.
Now buy it.
Buy it, right, exactly. Especially when it's such a good deal. Like you said, it's the price you're charging is not very much for everything that the people who are listening are getting out of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, the course that I built, if I must say so myself, is excellent and well worth the money. And I don't know, Mailani, if you have listened to any of the interviews other than your own or what, but I found them to be tremendous value. I want them in my library. I might not be speaking on the stage right now, but 6 months from now, a year from now, I might be getting ready to speak on the stage, and I want to listen to Iman Khan talk about how to close the sale from the stage. Or I might not be doing a Google Hangout on air right now, but 6 months from now, I might be ready to do that, and I want to come back and listen to your interview about putting on a Google Hangout on air.
Right.
So I think it has tremendous value to have in your library for anyone who has a small business.
Well, I'll say that I didn't listen to as many as I wanted to, so I'm really glad that we're getting that second replay, because like you said, sometimes the time, it's just the day, where does it go?
Right.
So I want to listen to more of them. There's 25. That's a lot of interviews to listen to. And, at the end of the day, if each interview is an hour long, it's 25 hours.
Yeah, they actually run just about 45 minutes, but still, yeah, that's why I said an hour, it's easier.
So
but yeah,
I think
it is almost 25 hours.
A really awesome benefit that you're offering to the participants who are listening. It's kind of nice that you're doing that. Wow, I have to ask you this question as we get into the last quarter here. you talked about the support, you talked about that the last time you were on, and the challenges of finding good support and support that you could work with and not have to necessarily, you know, micromanage a whole lot. So how many support people did you go through during this process?
Well, the first time around, I actually hired a company. They were referred to me, they were recommended to me, and it was a very expensive thing to do, and they sold a Telesummit package, and then they sold a webinar package. So basically, they sold me on the idea that they would do everything. I just pretty much had to show up and record the interviews. And that was a huge mistake on my part for a number of reasons. One, because I turned over control of my Telesummit to people I did not know and had no experience with. And they did not do anything that they had agreed to do. So I ended that relationship, but I waited far too long to end that relationship because that's a difficult thing for me to do. I just kept saying, please, 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 will you do what I've hired you to do? Okay. So I went through that experience, and that lasted about 2.5 months. And like I say, it was absolutely horrible. Then I hired a single person who was also recommended to me, and she actually did a great job. She helped me behind the scenes quite a bit with more technical issues, but I didn't want her in control of my Telesummit, and I only used her for a few hours, and I paid only for a few hours. And what we did was I just bought 3 hours of her time to start with, and then once we went through the 3 hours, I paid her for 2 more hours, and that was all I needed at that point. So that was great. In the end, I ended up running the summit entirely myself, providing all the support to, you know, answering everybody's emails, doing all of those pieces myself, and that was great. I'm so glad I did. While it was 24/7, it consumed me completely. In the last few weeks just of communication with my speakers, getting them to know me, I had several people tell me if I had continued with my original support, they were going to drop out.
Wow.
You know, that they were not representing me well. So the lesson here is that now I know all the pieces. So even if I end up hiring support again for my second summit, I now know exactly what they should be doing and how it should be done and how I want it done. And very quickly, if it's not happening that way, I know, and I can make a change. Right. Whereas before, I was operating in the dark. I assumed, and you know what happens when you assume.
Right.
But I assumed they were doing what I had hired them to do, and that was not the case.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Well, gosh. Thank you so much for joining us again and coming back and being honest. I think it's actually very brave that you came in and told us what happened and everything that you went through and the pain you went through and what you got out of it, and shared the benefit that you received out of it along the way. Because a lot of times when we're out there selling something, you know, we're concerned about the face that we're putting out, about what we're showing to the public, and you made yourself very kind of open here and transparent, and I really appreciate that, and thank you so much for coming on TGIF again, Abbie. That's really wonderful that you shared all this information with us. I think you taught us all a whole lot today.
Well, thank you for having me. You're very welcome, and I must say, if I may just add to that, because part of my frustration in learning about this online world and working through programs is exactly what you just said. Everyone puts on a face and everything is perfect. And I always have this feeling there's a story behind the story, but nobody wants to share the behind the story. So I feel very strongly about that, because I'm extremely happy with how my summit ended up, and I went through a lot of pain to get there. I would like to maybe prevent some of that. If anyone else decides they would like to put on a summit, please contact me. I'd be happy to share any more with you, because we can't, of course, cover everything here. it was wonderful, but it was extremely painful, and I know that second time around it'll be so much easier.
Right.
So yeah.
I think you're right too. Well, it is 9:50 already, so I want to give a chance to the people that joined us in the peanut gallery to say hi, to share their thoughts or questions, anything that they have to do. And I see Roxanne is just chomping at the bit. So Roxanne,
well, what you just said, that would be me. And I'm thinking that you were strong to get that done, and had it probably in your heart that you had to do this. Even what you just said, it would be me, that I wouldn't know what I was doing, but I would definitely learn from my mistakes. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Would you like to introduce yourself for anybody new and let them know what you do, Roxanne?
Oh, well, Roxanne Davenport. I say I'm an epilepsy advocate because I have it in my heart for everyone to know what epilepsy is, that it's just not where you fall to the floor and shake. So that's what I'm working on, and one of these days want to be known worldwide.
Well, awesome, Roxanne. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for coming in. Good to see you.
Well, thank you. I hate I've missed past few of your shows, because I love yours.
That's okay. That's, one of the perks of doing it twice a month. There's always a next time, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
John, you're up next. Share with us any of your closing thoughts on this, because you were a participant too.
Well, Abbie, I've been through similar things, and here's what I always keep in mind. You only have to do something for the first time once.
Right.
And just keep repeating that.
Right.
And do you have anything coming up you'd like to tell us about?
Let's see. Well, Tuesday, you and I are doing a webinar, a free webinar on online marketing and sales. And we've been preparing for this for quite some time. And, one of the things, I see a lot of stuff on online marketing. I've never seen anybody kind of partner the two, marketing and sales, so that people can walk away with some tools they can use right away. It's usually that I got the marketing piece, now what do I do with it? Or I got the sales piece, but I'm not quite sure what I'm selling. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
and that's
me too.
Tuesday.
Yep. And I'll talk a little bit about that too. Annie, do you have anything coming up? Any last thoughts? Are you there? I think she might have stepped away from the keyboard. And when you come back, Annie, we'll put you back on. I'm your host, Melanie MacDonald, brand identity and outreach strategy consultant. And as you just heard from John, he and I have kind of hooked up and created a free presentation for you, a little workshop. It's going to be next Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, right here on Google Hangouts. There is an event page. You'll find it if you check my profile or John's, because we'll both be sharing it. And it's Online Marketing and Sales 101, Social Media Marketing and Sales 101, rather. So like John said, we've connected because we enjoy each other's Hangouts. And I'm great at promoting things and putting things out there, but I always felt like that used car salesman that Abbie was talking about. I had this mental block of when it came to making the sale, and especially when I'm out doing a live presentation, I do this great presentation, and I get to the part where I'm like, oh, and I have a website coming up, and you can buy a seat, and I would freeze all the time. It was just terrible. I would be like, ah. So John helped me a whole lot, and he taught me a lot of really good tips and tricks that took away those mental blocks. And really, it had to do with the scripting and how changes that I made during the presentation, so that at the end of it, instead of me going to them and saying, and now I'm going to sell you this, they were coming to me and saying, you know, I need to learn more. Where can I learn more? And that kind of took a lot of the blocks away. It was awesome. And I thought, wow, this is great. And I nagged John about his branding.
John doesn't listen. Hey, Melanie, can I say something in defense of used car salesmen? Okay.
Yes.
Actually, the technique that you use and that I use, if you stop and think about it, when you go to buy a vehicle, what do? What type of car are you looking for today?
Right. Yeah.
What's your price range? What will it take to get you to buy a car? And they're collecting that need, okay?
Yeah.
So if they decide that, you know, a Maserati is not within your price range, they're going to take you over to the used car side of the lot.
Right, yeah.
I know some folks that are very effective, very credible, and have a lot of integrity that have earned quite a living selling automobiles.
Yes.
Me too. Me too.
Yes. So again, apologies to any used car salespeople out there. It's just the stereotype. We know you're not really like that. You guys are great, ladies. But anyway, join us next Tuesday, 9 a.m. John and me co-hosting. It's going to be a great presentation on social media marketing and sales, like we said, putting the two together. Annie's back. Yay.
Oh, I'm so glad to be appreciated. I was listening. I just wasn't visible.
Do you have any last questions that you want to ask or thoughts?
Yes.
Promos?
Because I'm the only person who ever comes to any of these hangouts who's a manufacturer. Everybody else is usually selling a service of some kind.
Yeah.
And I'm a manufacturer with a store. So I'm wondering how I can take these principles and apply them to generating sales on my website.
And who are you directing that question towards?
I'm
Abbie?
directing it towards anybody who wants to answer it.
Well, if I may,
Abbie would be a good choice.
if I can address that, because all of the principles apply to a store. And what I mean by that is, you know, right now, for example, I'm a sales coach, and so I'm selling my coaching services. But when I was in the car business, I was selling a product. You know, people had to come into the finance office, and in that office, I sold financing. And in that office, I sold a service contract. And in that office, I sold paint sealant. So I was selling a product. It's all the same process. It's all about building a relationship, making a connection. It's that cliche that I think it's a Zig Ziglar saying, you know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So if your product is, as you said, it sounded fabulous, you know, for people, for example, in a convalescent facility to have a really comfortable gown to wear or a really comfortable bed jacket. I just think that's exactly the same conversation. You're talking about how this will make that patient feel, how this will make their life different. Why is it valuable? Those are all exactly the same conversations, although you might not, your consumer might not be that patient. It might, I imagine it's probably the family of that patient.
Or the friend.
Pardon?
Or the friend.
Or the friend, right. So it's, you know, what you need, my suggestion is simply to talk about why does it make a difference? Why does a comfortable gown when you're lying in bed make a difference? I mean, I've been a hospital patient. I know God, those things are awful, you know, and they're embarrassing, and they're hard cotton, and they, you know, they're not soft, and it's just, wow, how would your friend, your loved one feel with this, and how would it help them to adjust to maybe their situation and their environment when they're actually comfortable in their clothing
and retaining their dignity.
Exactly. Oh,
yeah.
That's the dignity is a huge piece of that conversation.
Yeah.
So to me, you know, granted, you're not going to be speaking from the stage, so that might not apply, and yet how to frame your offer would absolutely apply. So I don't know if you participated in the summit or if you had an opportunity to listen to the interviews, but I would certainly recommend it if sales is an issue, something you'd like to get better at, and how to sell the benefits of your product versus the features, because features don't sell. People want to know the features. They want to know, what is it made of and how do you wash it and how that sort of thing, but that's not going to sell it. What's going to sell it is how it's going to make that person feel, how it's going to change their life, and what is their life going to be like if they don't have the product that you manufacture.
Wow, thank you, Abbie. I don't think we could have had a better way to close out this episode of TGIF Business Networking Hangout than fabulous advice from Abbie to one of our awesome panelists, Annie Chalakian and Silver Moon Bay. And you can find Annie's stuff at silvermoonbay.com. Well, it's 10 o'clock, folks. It's time to go. It's been a wonderful episode. Thank you, everybody, for joining in, Roxanne and John and Annie, and especially my featured guest, Abbie Joseph-Harrington. It was awesome to hear about the summit and learn so much about it. The next episode of TGIF is going to be on Friday, August 7th, and that's my birthday. Woo!
Oh,
So
happy early birthday.
Yes, thank you. I think it's going to be, I think we're just going to do an open networking and have some fun on Melani's birthday. TGIF. And, have some topics to talk about. And being that it's my birthday and I'm going to be old, yes, I know. I'm okay with old, though. Most people say that, when I say I'm old, I get this, oh, you're not old, but, they're taking it like it's a bad thing. I'm not really feeling like it's a bad thing, personally, and I think that's going to be one of the topics of discussion. Why do people think it's a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing. My hair is silver. It's cool. It's awesome.
It's cool.
I like it. I love my hair. The day I got laid off from work was the day I stopped dyeing it because I like my gray hair. So what can I say? So there.
Cool.
Yeah, I like my gray hair too.
You miss your gray hair.
I didn't say that. Okay.
Bye, everybody. Have a great
Bye-bye.
weekend. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Melanie.